Starting off at number 6, we have Guru's early days in One Punch Man. Guru becomes one of the most fearsome martial artists in anime, a predator that hunts heroes for sport. But rewind to his opening chapters, and the reason behind his rampage is embarrassingly shallow. He doesn't want revenge. He doesn't crave justice. He's just tired of heroes winning. Flashback. A kid bullied him for liking monsters more than superheroes. That's it. That's the cornerstone of his worldview. Decades later, he's still raging against the Saturday morning cartoon logic of good always beating evil. So he declares himself a human monster, picking fights with professionals just to prove the script wrong. The irony is brutal. Guru has the talent to rival S-class fighters. He could have been a legend. Instead, he clings to this juvenile grudge, throwing himself at people who don't even know his name. And the cost: streets torn apart, innocents caught in crossfire, and a reputation as a chaotic menace. Also, he can reenact his childhood tantrum on a national scale. It's not until much later, after nearly dying several times, that Guru evolves into something more layered. But at the start, his motivation is as hollow as it gets. I root for the bad guys, so I'll be the bad guy. Well, that's not ideology. That's cosplay with collateral damage. One Punch Man makes it sting by showing the human wreckage left in his wake, families hiding indoors, heroes hospitalized by the dozen, and all of it powered by a motive that's barely past the maturity of a playground scuffle. Guru eventually earns complexity, but those first steps into villainy, they belong in the Hall of Shame. And if you think that's weak, wait until you see someone who ruins lives for the sake of primetime TV. At number 5, we drop into Bleach with Don Kanonji. Now, let's be clear. Don Kanonji isn't a world-ending villain. He isn't Aizen or even a lieutenant-level threat. But the man earns his spot here because his motivation is pitiful, and the damage he causes is very real. Kanonji is a TV psychic, obsessed with ratings and his own fame. His motivation? Staying relevant. Not saving lives, not stopping hollows, not protecting souls. He's chasing clout. And because of that, he repeatedly puts innocent spirits in danger just so he can look cool on camera. There's a moment early in the series where he charges in, screaming his catchphrase, and tries to exorcise a spirit with his flashy technique. Except, the attack doesn't purify the soul. It cracks it open, letting the hollow inside fully manifest. Translation: Kanonji doesn't just fail at his job, he creates the very monsters that slaughter the people he's supposed to help. And why does he keep doing it? Because the audience loves him. Because the mask, the staff, the theatrics, they get him airtime. Kanonji embodies the empty celebrity. He's risking souls for Nielsen ratings. The tragedy is that he's not evil at heart. He actually thinks he's helping. But good intentions don't erase the trail of disasters he leaves behind. For every ghost that turns hollow thanks to his meddling, that's another death he indirectly caused. What makes it worse is that when he's confronted, he doubles down. His pride and ego won't let him admit he's wrong. It takes Ichigo physically stepping in to stop him before he realizes how shallow his mission really is. Don Kanonji is proof that a villain doesn't need ambition or ideology to be dangerous. Sometimes all it takes is ego, a crowd, and a bad understanding of your own limits. And yet, as pathetic as chasing TV fame is, our next entry sinks even lower. A man who turns entire nations into victims just to nurse his own toxic love life. At number 4, we step into feudal Japan with Naraku from Inuyasha. On paper, Naraku is one of the most successful long-term villains in shonen. He manipulates armies, engineers betrayals, and spreads fear for decades. But when you strip away the webs of schemes, his motivation is painfully small. A mix of lust and resentment over a woman he could never have. It starts with Onigumo, a crippled bandit consumed by desire for the priestess Kikyo. He's so desperate that he offers his body to demons in exchange for power. The fusion creates Naraku, a demon who should have been born with grand ambitions. Instead, he inherits Onigumo's pathetic obsession. His centuries of cruelty, just an overblown reaction to being rejected. Naraku spends the series tormenting Kikyo, Inuyasha, and anyone who crosses his path. Entire villages are wiped out. Allies are corrupted and enslaved. The Shikon Jewel becomes his endless excuse to justify the carnage. But if you look closely, most of his schemes bend back to the same tired axis. Kikyo, either trying to possess her, destroy her, or twist her legacy. The irony is sharp. Naraku commands legions of demons, reshapes landscapes, and toys with fate itself, all to settle what amounts to a toxic love triangle. He isn't a visionary, he isn't a liberator. He's the embodiment of bitterness with too much power. And the human cost is staggering. Families slaughtered, friendships shattered, and generations cursed. Not because Naraku wanted to rule the world, but because he couldn't let go of a woman's rejection. It's villainy reduced to incel rage, magnified 1,000 times over. Naraku's tragedy isn't just the people he killed, it's that his legacy collapses into pettiness. For all the terror he spreads, his motive never grows. It stays as shallow as Onigumo's lust, wrapped in layers of demonic cruelty. But if Naraku is a love-obsessed shadow, our next villain is the opposite. Someone who doesn't even bother with passion. Just blind faith and a thirst for blood. Sliding into number 3, we have Haiden from Naruto Shippuden. In a series stacked with layered villains, Nagato with his cycle of pain, Madara with his warped vision of peace, Obito with his grief-driven dream, Haiden sticks out like a blunt weapon. Not because he's clever, not because he's tragic, but because his motivation is the definition of hollow. Haiden kills because his god tells him to. That's it. His entire persona boils down to being a zealot of Jashin, a death cult that glorifies slaughter. He doesn't chase political power. He doesn't seek revenge. He doesn't even care about money. His only why is that he enjoys spilling blood and gets divine permission to do it. We see the consequences up close. Entire villages turned into ritual sites, massacres left behind as offerings. Haiden isn't shaping the world. He's just desecrating it because some unseen deity allegedly said, "Go wild." Compared to the ambition of his fellow Akatsuki, his role feels almost comedic, like the cult member who got lost at the wrong meeting but tagged along anyway. The real horror is how effective he is despite the emptiness of his cause. His immortality makes him a nightmare to fight, and his blood curse technique guarantees bodies on the ground. But once the dust clears, you realize none of this destruction had purpose. No new world order, no ideology. Just carnage for its own sake, wrapped in pseudo-religious theater. Even Kakuzu, his partner, can't stand him, and Kakuzu's main hobby is murdering people for money. That should tell you everything. Haiden's place in the Akatsuki is proof that not every villain needs a grand design to be dangerous, but it also makes his arc one of the shallowest. His legacy is a graveyard with no meaning behind it, and yet, somehow, the next villain manages to sink even lower, because at least Haiden had faith. What comes next is a man who shatters lives just to keep his career afloat. At number 2, we land in Full Metal Alchemist with Sho Tucker, the sewing life alchemist. Tucker isn't a warlord. He doesn't command armies or threaten nations. His crimes are quieter. And that's what makes them unbearable. His motivation? Keeping his research grant. That's it. Not glory, not revolution, not survival of the species. Just career maintenance. The series sets it up with a chilling reveal. Tucker once earned his license by creating a talking chimera. But when the deadline for his next breakthrough looms, he's out of ideas. So he takes the most cowardly shortcut imaginable. He fuses his wife with a beast, killing her in the process. Years later, with his funding again on the line, he repeats the experiment, this time with his own daughter Nina and the family dog. The result is one of anime's most infamous scenes. A child's voice calling for her father through the warped mouth of a beast. Innocence mutilated into a grotesque reminder of ambition gone rotten. And the reason? Because Tucker didn't want to lose his job. There's no twisted ideology here, no noble end misused, just selfish desperation. Tucker reduces his family to raw materials to protect his title and paycheck. The sheer pettiness of it makes the horror worse. Armies kill for territory. Fanatics kill for gods. Tucker kills for funding. What makes it sting deeper is his lack of remorse. Even when exposed, he tries to rationalize it, telling Edward and Alphonse that a scientist must make sacrifices. It's the kind of delusion that strips away any chance of sympathy. He doesn't just commit atrocity, he defends it as if it were logical. Tucker is the ultimate example of wasted humanity. His motive is so small, so fragile, that it collapses under the weight of his crimes. He didn't reshape the world, he didn't change history. He just destroyed the people closest to him and left nothing but trauma in his wake. And yet, believe it or not, our number 1 villain manages to sink even deeper. Because if Tucker represents the tragedy of ambition gone rotten, the next one is just pure, unfiltered sleaze, dressed up in godhood. And at number 1, the crown of pathetic villain motivations goes to Sugo Nobuyuki, Oberon from Sword Art Online, the Suna. After Kayaba's death, Sugo seizes control of SAO's surviving players, trapping 300 people in comas. Why? Not to reshape the end, all his empire amounted to was wasted time and stolen lives. And that's our list of anime villains with the weakest motivations. From Garu's childhood grudge to Don Kanonji's clout chasing, from Naraku's rejected crush to Sugo Nobuyuki's pure selfishness, they all prove that not